What do you think of that? What don't you think of that? I think that girl has got everything that she... Are you thinking maybe?
No.
No?
No.
No?
No.
Definitely not.
We'll think about it.
Okay.
Just...
But when I saw it, they were like, it's motion detectors. I was like, shut the front door.
Give me an example why we use it.
Because we do motion things now with our tiki-talkies.
Yeah, but we don't want it following us because we come out of shot and that's the idea, isn't it?
Yeah, but you don't have to have the motion thing on. But the ones, you know, where it's like me, then you, it just follows you around.
Well, how would it know?
I don't know. Built-in technology.
Like, mine's like,
yeah. I'm like, to Emily! To Ellie!
Oh my goodness.
Right, so you need to be comfortable.
I'm not comfortable because I know what we're talking about, kind of.
Yeah, but comfortable, and then if we need to take a break, I can just edit it out, can't I?
Mm-hmm. Just put my silencer on. You know, because I'm so popular and
my
stuff.
Silencer also doesn't work.
So it wasn't a competition, babe.
No, I'm just telling you. I'm just like, that's why I keep going, because it's the last payment for Harry's phone. So I'm like, do I invest in another phone? This time, do I get insurance?
No, there's no point getting insurance.
Really? Because look what happened to my other phone, babe.
Yeah.
So no insurance means it wasn't replaced.
It just isn't. It just never is as easy as that.
Or are you thinking it's not likely to happen again? Next thing you know, it's a hammer. I mean, who puts a chair on their phone?
Well, you know.
Me. Right, it's definitely recording.
It is recording.
Okay. Okay. Right, before we start, shall I tell you what the case is? Because obviously you'll be... So it's Josef Fritzel and the girl in the basement. Josef Fritzel.
Babe, I'm not going to even say it, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. You know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
Well, when we introduce the podcast, you tell them what we're doing.
Oh, yeah, Josef Fritzel.
Josef Fritzel. See, you're like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, I feel like you are.
I'm just here.
I feel like you are doing it.
What?
Otherwise you'd be going, you took my bit. I'd be like, I told you to
That would be a true story crime as well.
So, Josef Fritzel and the girl in the basement.
I won't remember that, but go on.
I feel like you will.
Josef
Fritzel. There you go. Okay, shall we get into it so you can remember it? Hello everyone and welcome to Middle Aged Opinion. I am your host Ellie.
And I'm Emily, and today we are looking at Josef Fritzel and the girl in the basement.
Perfect.
Yes. This is all on Ellie today.
Yeah.
And I know very little about this story. Like, probably what most know, if not less. But Ellie has deep dived.
Yeah, so if you watch us regularly, you know I like ghost balls, paranormal, true crime. I just like all that. And so me and Emily have decided to add a few true crime podcasts into our mix of things. Now we're a year on. And I think when I was looking for the case to choose, I looked at Rose and Fred West. I looked at Myra Hindley and Ian Brady. Is it Ian Brady? Yeah. So I looked at all of those cases, and they are fascinating because obviously when it comes to looking at them, you're talking about psychopath and all that sort of thing. And of course I love all that sort of thing. And then I remembered that I'd seen the girl in the basement. And normally, like I was saying to Emily, that normally when you watch a horror movie or a true crime case, a film that's been made from a true crime, they normally heighten what's happened to make it more engaging. Like, Amityville Horror, all these things to make it more entertaining for the public. However, in this case, because I've watched The Girl in the Basement probably 3-4 times.
I've never watched it.
You're going to have to watch it after this. After you've heard the story, I suggest you watch it because it's not that bad compared to this.
Okay.
And I think that it's terrible, don't get me wrong. And I think that it's fascinating that this is the first time I've seen a film that is not anywhere as bad compared to, it's bad, but it like compared to the real fucking case. But I have tried to follow a timeline, and I have tried to put as much information as I can in, but you could go on forever. So hopefully you follow along and understand. Right, are we ready? Are you ready? Are you comfortable? Do you want to open your drink or anything?
Sure.
I am going to probably stop halfway through and go for a pee or something. I'm like, I feel a bit nervous. It's like we're just starting again.
It's because it's like a big deal, and actually this particular, I haven't got anything to follow on with. This is your baby today.
I'm the guinea pig of where we go with this.
Yes.
And when I say I have done hours and hours of work on this, I'm talking...
She really has invested.
Yeah, I'm talking probably 12 hours in total over the evenings. And I've written it all up as best I could. But anyway, right. Here we go. So, yes, also, before I start, I want to say that you'll notice that I do not... I don't think I have anywhere, but I do not... refer to Josef Fritzel as dad or father, maybe a tiny bit in the beginning, but that is it, because it made me gag to even say those words, so I kind of don't do that, but you should be able to follow along with what I've done. Okay, anyway, right, today's case is going to be about Josef Fritzel, now known as Mayhoff. If I get any names wrong, pronunciations of the names coming up, I apologise. He was born on the 9th of April 1935 in Austria. Only child, he was an alibi baby to Josef Sir and Maria Nanning Fritzel. You know what an alibi baby is?
Nope.
I go on to tell you, I forgot I'd written that. Anyway, his mum gave him the first name of his dad, Josef, and her mother's maiden name, Fritzel. Maria was a working mum and raised Josef on her own. His dad was an alcoholic. He abandoned the family when Josef was 4 years old, never to be seen again. He died in 1944, fighting in World War II. Maria abused Josef his entire childhood, emotionally and physically. Maria was cruel to Josef, beating and rejecting Josef, then showing him love after she had finished torturing him. Once she beat him so badly when he was a child, repeatedly kicking him in the head, and left him on the floor in the same spot, walking around him as if he wasn't there. He was often left on his own for long periods of time. He was often filled with anxiety and worry that his mum could turn any minute. Maria only had Josef to prove that she was not infertile. After her first marriage broke down when she did not fall pregnant, and her husband at the time had affairs with the house staff, leaving Maria to raise 3 illegitimate children. He left, taking the 3 children with him. She was sure to make sure Josef knew his only purpose was to prove her fertility. He was a burden to her, someone that she had to look after but didn't want to. Josef never created a bond with her or never trusted her. Further adding to Josef's anxiety, Maria was arrested for refusing housing to German Nazi soldiers. She was sent to a concentration camp. Josef was told that she was dead. He was then sent to live in an orphanage where he was abused by a male staff member for 3 years. Now, I couldn't find out whether that was...
How old is he at this point?
So the timeline on this situation, but it says later, so I'm going to say he's still before puberty.
He's still under a teen. He's still an
yes, yes. As far as I could make out.
Wow.
So as I've just said, he was abused by a male staff member. I couldn't clarify whether that was physically, mentally, or sexually. I'm not going to speculate. He was abused. End of.
Yeah. Just to add to
everything else.
The abuse he's already gone through his whole life so far.
Yeah.
So nothing new for him, apart from it being male.
Exactly. After Maria came home, she was more mentally disturbed. The abuse would become worse, with Josef sleeping outside and her tying him up for days at a time. At the end of the war, Austria, where they lived, was controlled by Russia. So it was split into different parts, and they were in that particular area. And Maria and Josef were starving. There were food shortages until 1950, and even the poorest families would take pity on Josef and give him bread and scraps. He would hate this and feel humiliated, but accept the food to survive. The only good thing in Josef's life was the head teacher, who could see how bright he was and encourage him to make the most of his academic talent, giving him the incentive that would be the ticket out of poverty and his awful home life. He was very talented in mathematics and went to university to get a degree in engineering. His mother was so degrading and controlling, Josef would have to hide that he was getting his degree and study, and he took his classes at night. Josef also worked in a metal yard to pay his bills. The more he was achieving, the more independent and more resentful he became of his mother. When Josef was 17, this would be the last time Maria would raise her hand to Josef. She would strike him in the face. He would then punch her in the side of the head, knocking her out. Maria now started to become fearful of Josef, as he had once been of her. Right. Once Josef's confidence grew, so did something else inside of him, something dark. He became a peeping Tom at the age of 16, 17. He began to peep in the windows of neighbours who were newlyweds and watch them having sex. This excited him, then began to sort out other people who were having sex and undressing. He would also follow young women, exposing himself sexually for pleasure. Josef then moved towns to a more prosperous town where work was plenty. His work life would flourish, but his personal life was not great. Josef, now 20, had not yet kissed a girl, but he then met his wife, Josef Fritzel. She was 17 and he was 21. They were married within a few months of meeting. They both wanted a big family and Maria to stay home whilst he worked to support the family. They both moved back to his mother's home and lived in the ground floor apartments. Okay, so now we're going into the timeline. So sometimes the information jumps forward, but I got what I could. Yeah?
Right.
June the 17th, 1957, first daughter Doris was born from the couple Rosemary and Josef. 3 years later, Rosemary Jr. was born. 5 years after that, Harold, their first son, was born.
Right.
He took an 18-month contract after Harold was born. He took an 18-month contract in another city with his company. During this time, he had no contact with his family, not by phone or by mail. He enjoyed his time away, visiting many brothels. When he returned home, his children were 8, 5 and 2, and did not show Josef any love. He was like a stranger to them. This angered him, as he was the one supporting the family. He thought that they owed him his love. He became violent in the same way his mother had been to him. Rosemary, now pregnant with their 4th child. The 4th child was Elizabeth, born on the 6th of April, 1966. Josef would pick up with his urges that he had once as a child, and would now continue with him peeping in people's windows and exposing himself. He was reported by one victim, but was let off with a warning. He then stepped up by trying to sexually assault a woman and was only cautioned. In 1967, he again changed by stalking a woman, following her, finding out where she lived, and now he would break in, raping her, holding a knife to her neck, telling her that if she screamed, he would kill her. Her child was sleeping in a crib next to the bed. He was caught, arrested for the crime, and would spend 12 months out of 18 months sentenced in prison. And Rosemary would stand by him, waiting for him to be released from prison. Often visiting him, they would never address what he had done in any of the visits or after he was released. Josef was also suspected in a case of attempted rape of a 21-year-old woman, but charges were never brought due to lack of evidence. After he was released, he would lose his job and life would return to normal. He would start a new job, and Rosemary would give birth to twins, Josef Jr. and Gabrielle. 2 years later, Rosemary would give birth to Doris, their 7th and last child. Yeah?
Okay.
Josef would now go into business for himself, buying a resort. This had a bar and restaurant in Upper Austria. Josef would renovate the resort in 1978. He would add an apartment to his home to rent out, and he would construct the basement under his home, telling anyone that would ask that it was an air raid shelter. He did all the work himself as he had the skills. He would tell Rosemary that the basement would become his apartment, and the family, were happy, as the less time he spent with the family, the happier the family were, given his violent temper. The basement was not allowed to be entered by anyone except Josef. Are you following along? You getting it? Yeah. His eldest 3 children would now leave the home as soon as they were legally able to get away, leaving Elizabeth and the 3 younger siblings. Rosemary's family would often ask her to leave Josef with the 4 remaining children, but she would refuse, distancing herself, already beaten down by years of abuse. She would keep herself occupied by running the resort, her home, and caring for the children. Elizabeth was the quiet sibling who gave the younger 3 the light to shine and quietly watched in the background. Josef started to watch Elizabeth, thinking she was the most like him, quiet and shy. He started to think they had a special connection in a way a lover would, and not in the way that a father should. He started to become sexually aroused by her. He would leave porn under her pillow, trying to arouse her. He would then start to sexually assault and rape her at the age of 11. This was in 1977. Telling her no one would believe her, not even the police. He also told her he would kill her and get away with it. Josef later said, and I quote, "It was an itch I could not scratch." He said he just couldn't stop. While these disturbing things were going on, Josef had another secret. The secret was that his mum was living with them. She had never been more fearful of Josef, her son, than she was now. With time, Josef moved his mum up to the attic, but not before bricking up the windows and keeping her locked up in the attic until she died in 1980. While she was alive and a prisoner, he would tell the neighbours that she had passed away years prior to her death, so no one would know that she was there. Nobody knows how long she was there, but speculation was for at least 20 years.
Oh my God.
It's a lot.
Oh my.
It's a lot. Honestly, my head is scrambled from this. Josef would later say that this was revenge. After his mother's passing, any questions? Just ask me. Yeah.
Austria are fucked up. Like, I hope they've up their game with their policing.
Mate.
Oh my God.
I mean, there are some bits and you're just like, what the fuck? Anyway, right. After his mother's passing in 1981/1982, Josef would now start beginning further work on the basement, converting it into a future prison. After Elizabeth finished high school, Josef enrolled Elizabeth in a 2-year program. Not wanting to pay out to hire staff, he would have his family working on the resort for free. In the program, Elizabeth made a very close friend who she confessed everything to that was happening in her family home life, including the rape her father would subject her to every chance he got. This was very empowering for Elizabeth, and she held on to the secret since she was 11 years old. Elizabeth and her friend came up with a plan to run away, as her friend also suffered at the hands of her parents. When Elizabeth returned home, freedom would end. But Elizabeth and her friend would keep in touch, running away to Vienna, going to parties, drinking and smoking pot. Josef had finished his basement prison by 1983. The basement you would enter via the first room, which was a utility room, leading to a workshop, then to a living room, which connected to a padded room. The living room then led to the bathroom/kitchen, then to bedroom 1, followed by bedroom 2. The whole basement was 35 metres in total, which is 380 square feet. The pictures that you'll see that I will import in a minute will be before the next conversion happened. So there was a later extension, but I will explain that, but not at this point. The utility room and workshop led to the living room quarters behind a steel door. There was little ventilation, no natural air, no heating, so the living quarters were pungent with mildew and mould. The walls, which felt wet like slime. He hooked up a few fluorescent lights and a few electrical sockets for appliances. It was dark and gloomy. The day Josef would complete the basement, Rosemary would run to him in a panic, saying Elizabeth, 16 at the time, had run away to Vienna. Josef then reported her missing to the police with a photo with a caption, "Have you seen me?" released to all the papers. Elizabeth and her friend were found within the day. Josef then drove to get her, angry. When she came home, she would be punished for several weeks. Then things calmed down. Josef then decided that he would no longer rape her with the fear of her saying something. She was not sexually assaulted for 2 years. She became more confident, realising he was worried that she would speak out. She would answer back and do as she pleased. Josef realised he was losing control of Elizabeth. These felt like the best 2 years of her life so far. But on the 28th of August 1984, Elizabeth, 18 at the time, would go missing again, and Josef would once again report her missing to the police. He would tell the police and anyone else she was with the wrong crowd. He told everyone that she was into strange things because he believed that she had joined a cult. The truth was, 2 days prior to her disappearance, she had told Josef that she was planning to move in with her big sister, Rosemary, the following weekend, and had already moved most of her stuff out.
Why would she tell him?
I literally.
Why would she do that?
I literally in my head was like, why would you do that though? Why would you do that though?
Oh my God.
Josef could not lose control. He could not bear to lose control over Elizabeth. So 2 days later, on the 28th of August 1984, Josef asked Elizabeth to help him in the basement with a door that needed to be hung. Remember that nobody other than Josef had entered the basement, as it was forbidden. He asked her to sit at a table. Before she knew what was happening, he placed a cloth with chloroform over her nose and mouth. She passed out, later waking on the bed in the basement. She couldn't see as there were no lights, and she could smell the mould. She knew that she was in trouble straight away. When she lifted her hands, she then realised that she was chained to the bed. She could make things out now and could see keys in the door, but could not reach them. Josef then came into the room, tightening her chains. She was terrified, and Josef left Elizabeth for 24 hours. Elizabeth could never imagine what was to come. 24 hours later, Josef would go back to Elizabeth with a bucket for her to relieve herself. He would remove the chains from her hands and put them round her waist. He would tell her, "No one can hear you scream and you'll never get out of here." She knew he was right, and she knew that because she was 18, the police would not spend much time looking for her. The police never questioned Josef or suspected him. After he put the bucket by the bed, he would rape her for the first time in 2 years. He would then leave, returning later to rape her again. Both rapes would last hours, as if he was trying to make up for the previous 2 years. He had to contain his urges out of fear that she would tell. Now he could do as he pleased with no restraint. He would rape Elizabeth twice a day, every day. The days turned into weeks, then to months. Elizabeth would fight him every time, kicking, scratching, but nothing would deter Josef from his goal. He would show Elizabeth what the TV was for. It was for them to watch porn. Then he would make Elizabeth act out his favourite scenes. He would use sex toys, and he would use whips on her. He would spend hours doing this to Elizabeth. He would say, if don't do as I say, it will only get worse. He wouldn't look or speak to her during these assaults. For months after Elizabeth's disappearance, the dinner conversation between Josef and Rosemary would mainly centre on the whereabouts of their daughter. Josef would pretend to be worried, sick, but after 1 month had passed, Josef forced Elizabeth to write a letter. The letter said that she had left to join a cult and that she was happy. Josef then drove 100 miles to post it back to his address. He should send a letter to the family and the police. He showed the letter to the family and the police, who all accepted this. The torture would continue to get control of her. He would leave her with no clothes, no heating, no lights. He would then remove her chains, as this was interfering with his abuse. He would then replace the door with a metal door, telling her that it was rigged. 2 years would pass and Elizabeth would fall pregnant. She felt there was something different about her body. After a few weeks, Josef would also realise Elizabeth was pregnant. Josef was happy and told Elizabeth she should be grateful. In November 1986, Elizabeth would suffer a miscarriage in the 10th week of pregnancy. Elizabeth would change forever and completely lost all hope and would be deeply depressed, surrendering to Josef as she knew it wouldn't be long before she was pregnant again. Right? On the 12th of November 1986, so let me quickly explain. So now I'm adding something else into the timeline that was going on in the area, yeah? On the 12th of November 1986, a 17-year-old girl would go missing. Then on the 22nd of November 1986, a body was found wrapped in 2 green tarpaulins. And I want everyone to keep these murders in mind, yeah? It was now the 30th of August 1988, so we've jumped 2 years ahead, yeah? When Elizabeth gave birth to her first child, a girl called Kristin. She delivered Kristin on her own with only the knowledge of one book and a pair of scissors in complete darkness. This would change Elizabeth once again, giving her the strength to live for her baby. She would follow routine and try to make Kristin's life as happy as she could. Josef started to think of Elizabeth as his wife. He thinks Elizabeth feels the same way, and he even enjoys spending time with her and the baby. He would show Elizabeth pictures of the changing family that lived above, their weddings and their children, her nieces and nephews. The album would later be found, and the first half was the family upstairs, the second half was the family in the basement. That would be recovered by police and used as evidence in the trial. On the 1st of February 1990, Elizabeth would give birth to her second child, Stefan, a baby boy, once again on her own and in the dark. On the 29th of August 1992, Elizabeth would give birth to another daughter, Lisa. At 8 months old, Lisa would not stop crying, and Elizabeth knew something was wrong. Terrified this would anger Josef, Josef then decided to take Elizabeth, placing her in a box on the front steps of his home. There was a note from Elizabeth asking them to take care of Lisa, saying that she couldn't. Josef would then go to social services, explaining the situation, and then Rosemary and Josef would foster Lisa, receiving €400 a month. Lisa did have a heart problem, this explains why she wouldn't stop crying. Her heart was repaired and she was then in good health. The reason that Josef was never flagged for his criminal history was because in Austria law, criminal records are expunged after 15 years. This is how he was able to foster after the 25-year period. Yeah, does that make sense? So I included that because the law's now been changed because of this.
Okay.
Oh, babe, I'm not even a little bit through. Right. Elizabeth kept asking if she could please extend the size of the basement. And in 1993, Josef would finally agree. So Elizabeth and the children would begin the work with their bare hands, removing the earth to increase the size from 35 to 55 metres. That is 380 to 590 square feet. So not a massive amount, but from what they were living in, it's a lot. It's more. Then, on the 26th of February, her fourth child, a daughter, Monica, is born. Then, in December 1994, when Monica is 10 months old, Monica would be found in a pushchair at the front of the home. Rosemary would receive a phone call with a woman that sounded like Elizabeth, asking her to please take care of her. It is assumed this was Elizabeth, and it was a recording. Rosemary reported the incident to the police, expressing astonishment that Elizabeth knew their new ex-directory phone number, but nothing was done. They would also receive an extra €400 per calendar month. Elizabeth's oldest two children were constantly sick with colds and epilepsy-like symptoms, with only aspirin to treat them. With the renovation came hot water and lights, but it was still mouldy and damp. While Lisa and Monica were still young and unable to talk, Josef would bring the girls down to the basement to see their siblings and spend time with their mum. He would do what he needed during these times, leaving the girls with their mum. Elizabeth asked him to stop as this was too painful for her and unfair on Kristin and Stefan, who were never able to leave the basement. Elizabeth was a great mum, telling her two children all about the world, educating them and playing TV shows like nature programs. Then Elizabeth would fall pregnant again on the 28th of April 1996. Elizabeth would give birth to twins Michael and Alexandra. Michael became ill shortly after birth. Elizabeth begging Josef to take him to the hospital, but he would pass away 3 days later after birth. Josef would then take his little body and put him in an incinerator. It's hard, this one, isn't it? Alexandra would join her siblings upstairs at 15 months old, discovered in the same way that her two sisters were. Again, another €400 received. On the 16th of December 1992, Elizabeth would give birth to her seventh and final child, Felix. Felix would remain in the basement with her and her siblings, as Josef said Rosemary would not be able to look after any more children. Felix would become Josef's favourite, and he would start to think of a plan so he could bring his basement family upstairs with him and his other family. At this time, Stefan was 12 and Kristin 13. Josef had plans to put his basement family in one of his apartments. He had Elizabeth write a letter saying that she was coming home with her 3 children. This was meant to happen at the end of 2008. But in March that year, Elizabeth's oldest child, Kristin, 19 years old at the time, now would fall ill, with Elizabeth's ongoing concern and constant begging of Josef to get her some help. Kristin would become worse and was in and out of consciousness, having seizures repeatedly. On the 19th of April, Elizabeth would help Josef carry Kristin upstairs. Elizabeth would go back down to the basement, as the boys had never been on their own without Elizabeth. Josef would then call an ambulance. They examined her and said that she may not live. He had Elizabeth write another note explaining what was wrong with her and her symptoms. Later on, he was asked to go to intensive care where Kristin was on life support. Kristin's doctors kept questioning Josef. He said that they just did not believe the story. They decided to call the police. Josef Josef, of course, denied any knowledge of knowing anything. Elizabeth had dropped her daughter off with a note. The doctor believed that she had been poisoned, and an appeal was released for the mum to come forward to help save her life with an arrest warrant. No one would believe the story or the letter. The police asked Josef for a DNA test, but he would say that he was too busy. On the 26th of April 2008, 24 years after Elizabeth had first been abducted by Josef, he released Elizabeth, Stefan, this made me emotional when I wrote it, Stefan and Felix from the basement. He told Rosemary that Elizabeth had finally decided to come home. Later, Josef and Elizabeth would visit Kirsten at the hospital. They would both be arrested and questioned. Elizabeth would stick to the story Josef had told her to say until the police threatened to take her other 2 children away. She made the police promise that she and her children would never have to see Josef again. On agreement to the terms, Elizabeth began to tell the police the graphic and horrific events of the last 24 years. On agreeing to the terms, Elizabeth began to tell the police the graphic and horrific events of the last 24 years, the sexual, physical and mental abuse prior to her imprisonment in 1984. Police would go on to collect Stefan and Felix to reunite them with their mum, but also to get them medical help they desperately needed. The boys were overwhelmed as they had never been out of the basement their entire lives. Elizabeth would reunite with her 3 children. After Josef's arrest, the other 3 children, Lisa, Monica and Alexandra, would struggle as they had come to believe Rosemary was their mother. Elizabeth, understanding still found this hard to accept. Police could only spend 3 hours at a time in the basement due to the mould. It was deemed hazardous to be in there any longer. I just want to add, I didn't put it in there, but apparently the police that dealt with this all had to receive psychological treatment after by therapists. Police found porn, sex, toys, drugs, this is a small sample of things found in the basement. Josef said, quote, "I am no monster. It's because of me Kirsten is alive today. I could still have killed them all."
Oh, you hero.
Yeah. He said it was Elizabeth's fault and he locked her up to save her. He said she seduced him and that the sex was all consensual. Josef said it was Elizabeth that didn't want to use condoms as she would have felt less. Exactly. He said everything she said was a lie and he was not guilty. After 4 days into the trial, I know, you can't even make it up. You can't even fucking make it up, mate. After 4 days into the trial and the hearing Elizabeth's video testimony, he then pled guilty to all charges and the murder of Michael. He said he didn't realise and could have could he have a light sentence. This was denied. He was sentenced to life. Okay, so now I'm going to take you back, yeah? If you remember, I spoke of 2 murders of a young lady in the 1980s, yeah? 2 young ladies in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. Well, Josef was then investigated for these murders, including a murder that happened on the 17th of August, 1966, so before, where Josef was on holiday at the time. However, all 3 murders could not be proven to Josef due to the lack of evidence. So you can decide for yourself. So after this happened, Josef saw a psychologist and he was diagnosed with 3 different sexual disorders, including personality disorder. Okay, so I could have gone into the full psychological thing of what he was diagnosed with, but I thought, let me just get to the point. Right, I'm going to let you, so that really is how I put the case together. I think you tell me what you've got to say before I go to the aftermath.
Fucking speechless. Like, I don't know this. I knew very, very little about,
Most of this is not what I knew either, babe.
I mean, initially, the start of this, I felt they were obviously, I'm obviously quite human.
Yeah, of course.
And
yeah.
I felt bad for him. Like, I feel, as a child, like, what he went through, fucking hell, like, that hurt my heart.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to cry. But he could do that to his own kids. I'm just, what the fuck?
So, I don't know if I've taken it out or not. I can't even remember. I mean, this research just went on and on and on. But it came to a point where I was like, is it nurture or is it nature? And then I looked up so the percentage of people that are abused after being abused as children is a staggering 51%. Right, I didn't even realise it was so high. That is a massive amount of people who are abused and then go on to be abused again. But I used to think that it was 1 in 8 that would then be the abusers. I couldn't find that fact online. So again, it's another debate between psychologists on what you do. I want to feel sorry for him, but I can't, because he's so much worse.
No, I feel nothing for him.
Yeah,
like, nothing.
I don't.
Life is not even long enough.
I don't even think it is nurture. I think it is nature. I think you are born. Personally, myself, I think you are born that way. I think he was evil, and I think he continues to be evil, and he will always be evil. I just do. That is my personal belief. If you are born and you go on to do this sort of thing, you are an evil person, and that is all there is to it in my mind. What do you think?
I think you're right in some sense. There is that percentage of people that are that is just their way. That's it. There's no coming away from it. But I also believe that you've always got that choice, like, especially when you've been in a situation as a younger person or even as an older person,
a trigger,
where you've gone, fuck, this happened to me. I am never going to be like that. I am never going to put anyone else through that because of me, and cause that sort of pain that I went through because of someone. I will never do that to someone else. There is that choice of, that is not who I am. Yeah. I will never do that to somebody else.
With Josef, do I think if he had a normal childhood, would this have triggered? Maybe it wouldn't have. What I'm saying is, in his brain somewhere is dark.
There was definitely a switch at some point. And maybe through how you read it, through what you read, maybe that at the age of 16, 17, when he went clap back on his mum and he felt that power, and that she cowered to him, something changed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe.
I'm not saying that Josef, what I think is, if you've got that darkness in you, you've got that in you. Sometimes I think a trigger sets off that darkness.
I mean, obviously I hear my parents didn't grow up in Austria and were obviously not anything to do with the Nazis and the shit that was going on there. But the way my parents grew up, like, my dad tells us of all sorts of stories where he, as a young kid, was out the house all day long. 9 times out of 10, his parents didn't even know if he'd come home or not, because
Right.
that's just the way they were.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the same sort of background. Why did he never go, fuck this, I ain't going home to her? Like, I'm
'Cause
just going
she
to
had the
go
control.
and find somewhere else to be. I will sleep in a box. I will sleep under a car. I will sleep
Because
anywhere.
no child thinks that way. Every child just wants their mum's love. Whatever.
I know. I agree
know.
with that
You
as
just.
well. I agree with that.
No,
as
I'm
well.
telling you that when you're a child and you're going through something, you just want to please them, and it doesn't matter what's happening to you. That is your only objective. It's so fucked up. I mean, this psychological side of it, and I thought, do I go more psychologically into it? And then I thought, no, there'll be other cases where we do that. But are you happy for me to do the aftermath?
I now need to know whether
what's happened.
I need to know.
You need to know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I literally pretty much copy and pasted this aftermath. It's accurate, and I wanted to be precise with what's going on and happened with everybody involved. So Judge Hammer, or Hummer, sorry, oh dear, who presided over the trial, started the medical experts reported Elizabeth and her children were in relatively good health. After being taken into care, Elizabeth and all 6 of her surviving children and her mother were housed in a local clinic, where they were shielded from the outside environment and received medical and psychological treatment. Members of Fritzel's family were offered new identities, but it was emphasised that this was their choice to make. So they didn't have to go into protective custody, but if you wanted to, because obviously you can imagine the aftermath. Beth Hold Keplin, head of the clinic where Elizabeth and her children were being treated, said that Elizabeth and her 3 children held captive in the cellar required further therapy to help them adjust to natural light after years in darkness. They also needed treatment to help cope with all the extra space that they need. And were able to move about in. In May 2008, a handmade poster created by Elizabeth and her children and her mother as the therapy facility was displayed in Austrian town centre. This message thanked local people for their support. I'm going to cry again, hold on. We, the whole family, would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for sympathy at this time. They wrote the message, your compassion is helping us greatly to overcome these difficult times, and it showed us that there is also good and honest people here that really do care for us. We hope that soon there will be a time where we can find our way back into a normal life. Kristin was reunited with the family on the 8th of June 2008, where she was awakened from her artificially induced coma. Doctors said that she would make a full recovery. It was relief that Elizabeth and her children had been more traumatized. It is revealed that Elizabeth and her children had been more traumatized than previously thought during captivity. I mean, even I fucking knew that. Kirsten started to tear out her hair in clumps and was reported to have shredded her dresses before stuffing them into the toilet. Stefan could not walk properly because of his height, 1.73 centimetres, 5.5 feet 8 inches, was forced to have stooped in the 168 centimetre height, 5'6", in the cellar. It has also been revealed that normal everyday occurrences such as the dimming of lights or the closing of doors plunge Kirsten and Stefan into anxiety and panic attacks. The other 3 of Elizabeth's children who were raised by their father were being treated for anger and resentment issues after the event. In July 2008, it emerged that Elizabeth ordered her mother, Rosemary, out of the villa they had been sharing in a secret location set up for them by a psychologist clinic. Elizabeth was upset about Rosemary's passiveness during her upbringing. Lawyer Christopher Harbest, who represents Elizabeth and her family, said, "Fortunately, everything is going very well. They spend their time answering hundreds of letters from all over the world. Felix, Kristen and Stefan, brought up underground with their mother, have learned to swim. In August 2008, all of Elizabeth's children attended a 4-day summer camp organised, my God, by firefighters with 4,000 other young campers. For fuck's sake. The children, along with their mother, have had day trips including swimming outings where care was taken to keep them out of reach from the paparazzi to protect their privacy. In March 2009, stop it, I'm crying, it's not about you. In March 2009, Elizabeth and her children were forced to move out of the family hideaway home and return to the psychological clinic where medical staff had started trying to heal the family and unite the upstairs and downstairs siblings during the previous years. Elizabeth was reported to be distraught and close to breakdown after a British paparazzi burst into her kitchen and started taking photographs. After the trial, Elizabeth and her 6 children were moved to an unnamed village in northern Austria, where they live in a fortress-like home. All of the children require ongoing therapy. Factors that traumatise the upstairs children include learning that Fritzel had lied to them about their mother abandoning them, the abuse they had received from him during their childhood, and finding out that their siblings had been imprisoned in the cellar downstairs. Children receiving therapy due to their disruptive from normal development, the lack of fresh air and sunshine while held captive, and the abuse they and their mother had received from Josef when he came to the basement. All the children might have genetic problems common to children born from incest. In March 2009, Elizabeth was said to be estranged from her mother, Rosemary, who accepted Fritzel's story about Elizabeth joining a cult and did not pursue the matter further. Elizabeth allowed her 3 children who grew up in Josef's household to visit their grandmother regularly. Rosemary lives alone in a small apartment. A March 2010 article in The Independent stated that Elizabeth and her children are recovering remarkably well, given the difficult lives they've endured for so long. According to Josef's sister-in-law, Kristen, Elizabeth enjoys spending her time shopping, taking frequent showers, and now driving. She passed her driving test without any difficulty. She has a relationship with her bodyguard, Thomas Wanger. One of her bodyguards, who was 23 years younger than Elizabeth, was reported to be ongoing, and him becoming a big brother figure to her children. All of Elizabeth's children have now developed a normal sibling relationship with each other after having trouble dealing with the traumatizing event. The 3 upstairs children slowly began recognizing Elizabeth as their mother. The children began being outdoors, playing video games and spending time with their mother and grandmother. Despite the strained relationship, Elizabeth and her mother started visiting each other more and more, and Elizabeth has reportedly forgiven her mother for believing the father's story. Okay, that's them. And now just some other little bits and bobs. Right, in June 2013, work began to fill in the basement of Josef's home with concrete. The estate was liquidised, and the construction started and would cost £100,000. I think that says 100,000, not 100. Is that 1 million or 100,000? 100,000 euros, and would take a week to complete. The house would be sold to the open market, while most neighbours approve of this proposal. Some prefer that the property be demolished due to its sordid history. In 2015, asylum seekers were offered the house to live in. Even I'd be like, I'm good. The house was sold for 160,000 euros in December 2016, with the buyers voicing their intention to convert the building into apartments. In May 2017, Josef changed his name to Josef Maycroft, probably due to getting into prison fights, with several of his teeth were knocked out after other inmates set up a fake dating profile with his name and picture. In March 2019, Mark Perry, a British journalist who interviewed Josef in his cell, said he showed no remorse for his crimes, recalling that he kept saying, "Just look into the cellars of other people. You might find other families and girls down there." In April 2019, it was reported Fritzel's health was declining and that he did not want to live anymore. See if the violin's down there.
What, in the cellar where they just filled it in?
Yeah. In September 2021, a decision was made to release Josef from a psychiatric determined facility to a regular prison, where he will continue to serve his life sentence. This decision was based on the psychiatric report, which said that he no longer posed any danger. In November 2021, the ruling was appealed and overturned, and the Regional Court of Crimes was ordered to reconsider the case. In late April 2022, a panel of 3 judges decided that Josef could be moved. The decision was based on a supplementary psychiatric report submitted in March. The court ruled that he would remain in psychiatric facility until an appeal to the higher regional court in Vienna was heard. The move to a regular prison would mean that Josef, who received a life sentence, was eligible for parole in 2023, having served an initial 15 years of his sentence. In January 2024, Fritzel Josef appealed to Calm's Regional Court for release from prison into a nursing home, but the application was rejected. On January 25th, 2024, the higher regional court approves Josef's move to a regular prison and reports that he was suffering from dementia. Within a week, prosecutors filed a complaint seeking an overturn of the decision in a higher court. In May 2024, the court dismissed the complaint and again ruled that Fritzel should be transferred. That's it. That's the update. So ultimately, they're doing well. The family are doing well. He's rotting in prison where he should be. He should actually be in solitary confinement, raped daily by anyone that wants to, really. But you can't have it all. Go on, babe.
I mean, I feel like he should probably go into normal prison and see how that goes for him.
Yeah.
Because I don't reckon he'll be coming out alive.
He doesn't like being beaten up all the time either,
does he
apparently.
not?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't like it.
No. Twice a day?
It's
Should be
really...
all right now.
His story should have been... I had a really fucking bad childhood. Look at me now. I'm an engineer. I've got 7 beautiful kids. Blah, blah, blah. But no, that's not his story. And the film, babe, the girl in the basement, she has 2 or 3 children in the basement and 1 goes upstairs. I didn't know she had 7 children. And I just didn't know how bad it all was. It's absolutely, I mean, there's not a lot to be said. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I'm crying because I'm happy that they are piecing their lives together, and they are piecing their lives together, and that's what made me so emotional.
It's great that people are supporting them, but also people need to let them.
Right. So now, what I didn't include in there, but I did find an article that said, so where they've been moved now to this town in Austria, which don't even bother to try and find, yeah. But the whole town and everybody that lives there, anybody that comes there looking for them, they get run out of fucking town. So everybody that lives is looking after them. So not only do they have security, they have extra security. Why are you trying to take pictures of I'll include a photo of her before she went into the basement. But that is where it should end. Why try and find the kids?
Fucking nuts.
Leave the kids.
Leave them alone. And when they're ready to talk their story, then let them do it.
They may never.
They may not ever. But if they want to, then that should be their choice, not everybody chasing them.
Yeah.
Like, they have literally lived in confinement. Let them live.
I think it says
a life that's a lot more fuller than what they've done.
Just leave them alone.
24 years old before she came out and went to hospital. 24.
No, the girl 19. Elizabeth was in the basement from 18 until I can't do the maths. She was 24 years. She was 18 when she went in.
Oh, that's where I got the 24 from.
Yeah, so what is that? She was 40. I can't even do the maths.
When did she go in, sorry?
18 years old.
She was 18 when she went in, and she was in there for 24.
Yeah.
So she would have been 18,
42.
19, 20, 202, 42.
42 before she came out. I also didn't include in there that after halfway through, I mean, there's so much I didn't include, babe. Halfway through, her health started to deteriorate as well.
I'm so surprised that actually they weren't as sick.
Well,
weren't sicker.
There's obviously the inbred, which I want to say that's the epilepsy, but because they were in such mouldy and poisonous condition, I can't even say to you that that's what that was, because I'm not sure that it was.
I mean, there's conditions, their eyesight would be bad.
Just
their
everything.
Skin would be bad.
But what I like is that...
eczema.
So, the siblings that lived upstairs had to deal with anger issues, all these problems, psychological issues because of Fritzel. And then they had to deal with the psychological belief that their grandmother was not their mum, and that I can't even call him that, but this man had done all of this to their real mum, and it's just that the whole thing is just so fucked up. So please, for the love of God, leave them to get on with their lives, and just wish and pray that their lives are beautiful every day going forward. Fritzel is still alive. He's getting on 90.
And that they've got the choice to be better people. They do not have to do any of this based on how he came about, and heaven forbid.
I don't think they will. I just think
Heaven forbid. And hopefully her siblings, there were 7 of them, hopefully they are supporting her too.
Yeah. I think that's where we leave it. It's been a really...
That's 14 children.
Oh, I know, but you see why I said to you at the beginning I was not going to be referring to him as dad and that, because it makes me feel physically sick. I cannot bring myself to call him that from any of those children. I just won't do it. They deserve better than that word, because a father, it's really easy to say I'm the dad. A father is something else, right? So there was no way, and that's why I referred to him as Josef and then her as mum, Elizabeth. So, but that was our first introduction to true crime. I know it's been really heavy.
Both cried.
Yeah, it's a really, really heavy case, and probably I am glad I started with it. It won't always be that heavy, but every case that we do about true crime will always come with trauma and devastation, because that is what these people are doing to other people. So there will always be emotional bits, and I just couldn't hold that in, however much I would have loved to. But anyway, I think that's it. So thank you for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed listening to the story, and like I say, keep them in your prayers and don't look for them, but do your own research by all means. I will put the photos, they'll be on our YouTube videos. If you do listen to the podcast, it's easily googled and you'll be able to see all the pictures of the basement. Not all of it's there, but a lot of the pictures of the basement are there. You've got Elizabeth when she was young, and you've got Josef and Rosemary. There's not really much else of the family. You can find a few here and there, but I just don't see
It's
that
not necessary.
it's not necessary. And I will only enter one of Elizabeth. I don't see it necessary to enter that anymore. Josef will be entered more, because I think it's important to let the world know that he's a monster, and he will burn in hell, in my opinion. But it will be worse than that for him, because he deserved it. So anyway, on that heavy note, thank you for joining us. We're gonna take a little break.
We're gonna get a beer now.
Yeah, because that's why we started. That's why I said to you I want to start with it. It's very heavy. Thank you for joining. Until next time.
Like,
also
follow, subscribe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like, follow. Also, if you did enjoy this and you would like more true crime from us, we'd love it if you'd give us a bit of feedback. And Emily can then traumatise me.
Yeah, I might try and join in a little bit more rather than being so fucking gobsmacked.
So just so you know, the reason I did the first because it's a lot of work, and Emily has a full-time job and very young children, whereas I have 2 grown children, and although I'm busy, I'm not busy compared to Emily. So I just feel like it was fair that she didn't have to put all those hours in yet. But if you prefer us doing this, then tough shit. Till next time.
Peace and love. Look after each other.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? What don't you think of that?